We are so excited to be back. It's September 15th. And first of all, happy National Hispanic Heritage Month to all our amazing Hispanic and Latinx colleagues, friends, loved ones, and family members. We love you so much, and we're standing with you. We appreciate all that you do and bring to our society. Today, we are talking about mental health and faith. So, we're going to give you just a few moments to jump in. We are only here for a quick 30 minutes. And if you are joining us from LinkedIn or from Facebook, please put it into the chat. We want to acknowledge you. We want to shout you out, and we want you a part of the conversation. So let us know where you're from. Let us know who you are. And if you're listening to this later on, you can still comment and chat with us. All right, we're ready to get started. And shouting out Priscilla Prince, our parent educator, I apologize, with iRaise, and shouting out JQR from Delaware. Thank you for joining us so much. We appreciate you and this opportunity to share this space with you. Some of you are probably on your lunch break, so we appreciate you sharing this few moments. We have amazing, phenomenal humanitarian with us today, and her name is Alyssa Abernathy. She is a chaplain and MSW and CASAC credentialed. Lisa, I just want to say really quickly, is a friend, a companion, and a colleague. I had the privilege of knowing Elisa for, I think, over 5 years now. Time goes by so fast. And we actually had the privilege of meeting in our roles at the National Association of Social Workers New York City chapter, where we worked together as co leaders of the New Professionals Committee and did great work. And so Lisa has went on and left NASW, but she is certainly we have certainly not parted as friends. And so I am so grateful to have Elisa in this space with us. She is flexible. She is I mean, this is the girl right here you need to be looking up because she's amazing. So I'm so excited and blessed and honored to share this platform with Elisa. Lisa, thank you so much for being with us on your lunch break.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to be able to meet with you today and everyone else that's going to be tuning in. I am honored. I thank you so much, Shanequa, for extending this space and this time for me today.
Thank you, Elisa. So let's get started. Today, we are going to dig a little deep into Elisa's story. Behind every strong Black woman, listen, there is a story. And Elisa has a wonderful, amazing story that has really shaped the trajectory of her career. And she's also a mother, so maybe she'll talk to us a little bit about that. But Elisa grew up, from my understanding, correct me, in a household of faith where her mom, the amazing apostle Linda Abernathy, has really been very just a role model to many people throughout New York City and abroad. And so she has had the privilege of being mothered by Apostle Linda Abernathy, who was her mom. And so we'll love to hear like your story, Lisa, sort of just in the church. What was that experience like growing up?
That experience growing up, it had its pros and its cons. It's had its positives and negatives. The overall experience, I'm grateful for. I actually thoroughly believe that I would not be right here with all of you. I don't believe that I would have excelled to the place that I am today if I did not have that childhood experience. Um, I don't want to use the word trauma because I want to say that's very severe context to put that in. But I would say that it was challenging. It really was. But it was a challenge that I needed in order to grow and develop into the woman that I am today.
I love that so much. You talked about it being a challenge versus trauma. And just thinking about the church setting, and just faith overall, knowing that faith is such a beautiful thing, and oftentimes we find that, especially in professions of mental health, we segment or separate social work from faith or mental health from faith. But reality, a lot of studies and research has actually shown that the most protective factor against trauma is faith and spirituality. So I think it's very interesting that you brought that up, that there were some challenges that you had, but you were able to overcome them in a setting that you were in. But can you dig a little deeper and talk to us, for those that may not know your amazing story, a little bit about what you've had to encounter, and how being in a household of faith essentially helped you?
Background stories. As a young lady, I'm actually going to go a little bit further than talking into my teenage years. As a little girl, my mother always ensured that I was in church. I'm one of three siblings. I'm the oldest, and I was always with my mother. Actually, me and my first cousin, we always was at church with my mom. That was life. I like to tell everyone that I was born in the front pew of the church because that up. My mother served very diligently in ministry. She was a faithful servant. She served in a capacity of, before she became a pastor, apostle, a prophet, those are the things that she's known as. She was just a musician. She loved to play the keyboard. She loved to sing. So in every aspect of my life, I saw my mother serve in various capacities. And I want to believe that is where I get this innate ability to serve. Service is important to me. Service is key to me. But as my mother transitioned in ministry, she went into different roles. She became an associate pastor. And when my mother became an associate pastor at the Upper Room Tabernacle of Joy, she probably laughed that I would even remember that because I was like a really young girl. I believe at that time in my mom's life, my mother experienced a death. She lost one of her closest friends. And this person was a mentor to her. And my mother she started to experience a lot of changes at home. She wasn't cooking the same. Just a lot of things changed about her. She even got really sick. And it didn't show up as a cold, but it showed up as her experiencing things with her body. That toll. Now, I think I was maybe only 12 or 13. I didn't know what my mother was experiencing. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what grieving was. I didn't know what processing death was. Then years later, my mother started to transition within her relationship with my dad, and they separated. And then that was another thing that my mother started to experience and process, right? And so during these different transitions, my mother going into different leadership roles, I won't say that I got lost along the way, but I started to come into my own and my identity. And this is during my teenage years. And so while my mother was trying to process all of these different transitions from loss to um, going into a different leadership role, I don't know that now, from what I know educationally, from a mental health perspective, if she really properly processed all of these different things that was happening at that moment. So now here I go, a teenage girl who comes from a good household, but now I'm trying to find myself. Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? So I kind of get lost in the sauce, experiencing life and making premature choices. I actually had my son at a really young age. I just kind of got lost in the sauce of and then my dad, he kind of was absent for a period of time during that time. So I don't even know what I was feeling or what I was going through. I just knew that I had my mom, but I didn't have my mom. I had my dad, but I didn't have my dad. So I'm out here trying to figure out life. And I think not being in a space where I really had mentorship as a young girl, because even teenage girls, even children, they need mentorship, right? In the church community that my mom was in, they weren't equipped. If I look now, if if I look from now to then, I can tell that they weren't equipped because I don't remember anybody really reaching out and talking to me and stepping in where my mother couldn't to kind of catch certain areas and certain choices. I think they tried, but being properly equipped to step in matters, right? It doesn't mean you need to have an Ivy League degree. It doesn't mean that you have to have a doctorate in anything, but it just means that there are certain tools that I feel like even in faith, yes, we have the word of God. Yes, we have our belief system, but if we can accompany that with, basic knowledge or skills to be able to identify when somebody might be dealing with depression or just whatever, I don't think that I was surrounded by that in the faith community that I was a part of at that time.
That was really just so powerful, Lisa. You talked about the dichotomy. So, being a daughter of an apostle, a very active and powerful woman that served in church in many capacities, and then the effect that that had on you as a child, and just the life transitions and the significance of the things that your mother endured, and then also how that affected you. And I think it's really interesting because we, when we're thinking about mental health and faith, we don't really spend a lot of time talking about the other side of that, and that is those that are ministers or reverends or pastors, how their mental health is impacted by the service that they give to those that are in the church. And you depicted a very clear image of what that looks like, being through your mom and what she had to endure and what she struggled with. And you said something that was also uh, really important, and that was you don't know whether your mom really ever got to process the amount of loss that she went through. So not just loss of her best friend, but her husband, her family, and even her, just being getting sick. That essentially is a loss. And so all of the services that she's provided and all that she's been able to give to the church, she also experienced her own mental health challenges, and then how that affected you as her daughter and some of the things that you had to encounter. I think it's so important that we think of mental health from both sides. I mean, then you also said something that I want to highlight, and that was the necessity of churches being equipped, not just with with Bible and Word of God, but the actual tools of what it takes to help someone to identify if someone is suffering with depression or anxiety or other mental health challenges. How do you help them, and how do you see that, right? I wonder if you can speak more to that. And also, I'll have a follow up about what do you think your mother would have needed when she was going through that loss from the body, from the church. So the first one would be to talk a little more about your thoughts about the necessity of having those mental health tools to help us identify when people in church are suffering with mental health. And then secondly, what would your mom have needed?
Um, the way that I feel so. I don't know if everyone on this line is familiar. New York City started an initiative a few years ago. It's called the Thrive Initiative, but they started a free training called Mental Health First Aid. And I'm using this as an example because this is one of many examples of different resources that's accessible to everyone, no matter your educational level, no matter where you are. It's no bias in it. That particular training program provided anybody the resource to be able to identify people who are displaying symptoms in which they may possibly need some type of support, whether it's immediate support. It was an added resource. So I feel like I started this journey a few years ago. This came to me years ago, because as I started my studies in undergrad in psychology and faith in me, I had this burning fire in me to integrate. Um, spiritual counseling and natural counseling. And so that led me all the way down to this journey of being trained as a chaplain and understanding that there needs to be a balance, right? I am appreciative of the fivefold ministry. I'm appreciative of the teachers, the evangelists, the prophets, those who move in those capacities. But I think emotional intelligence is important. I think understanding the congregation from a mental and emotional perspective is really important, because that would help when you're counseling or when you are speaking to someone that is currently in a dire situation. Because not only are you giving them the word of God, you're also giving them a mental health perspective or emotional or mental perspective of whatever that scenario is that they're currently experiencing at that moment. And that's where we talk about holistically, right? We want to help people out in ministry and spiritually. We want to give them holistic teachings, right? It's the mind, the body, the soul, and the spirit. And so I believe that if more leadership and lay members, because we don't want to just talk about the fivefold ministry, we're more equipped to be able to respond to each other and emotionally intelligently, we can show up in a more supportive, non-judgmental capacity. I feel like sometimes in the realm of faith, people feel judged or they feel misinterpreted because of the lack of knowledge about some of these challenges that people are bringing to receive counseling about. And as far as what my mother would have needed, she would have needed somebody who was well versed in both capacities, or had the ability to be able to discern, because now we're going to talk about spiritually, discern where she was and what she needed, and been able to redirect her, even if they could not be that immediate support, provide her with the resources, tell her, look, take time for yourself. Self-care. Self-care is one of the most pushed words over the last few years and decades. However, not many people are actually moving and exercising within self-care.
That was so much. You gave us so many nuggets there. I was just taking it all in and processing everything you said, and sort of highlighting some of those things. I love the fact that you brought up New York City Thrive. It is a great resource that teaches anyone in New York City area. If you're in New York City, if you're not in New York City, we can also provide some other resources to you. But there are resources out there that exist. Here's the thing: sometimes you might actually have therapists and mental health experts in your church. Utilize them.
Yes.
Utilize them. Sometimes they exist. Sometimes you don't have to look outside. They might just be sitting in your
Yes.
church. They might be
Right.
members, right? So utilize the ones that are there and let the experts do their job, right? And I love this particular statement that was made in our last live. I think it was last week by Dr. Butler, and it was those that are called into mental health. They have the grace for it. They have the call for it. It's their call, and they specialize in it. So, I think a lot of times we didn't talk about this yet, Lisa, but a lot of times talking about mental health in church could be very taboo, and it could be very stigmatized, and people may see it as a lack of faith, or that or maybe even look down and say, why are you dealing with depression? Or it may be you might be ostracized for dealing with certain things. And I think a lot of it stems from lack of understanding, and some of it is actually cultural, because it tends to happen more in churches that are predominantly Black. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's just a lack of knowledge. Honestly, that's really all it is. If you and openness and um, just being open minded about the possibility that it's more than a spiritual thing. In the church, we equate everything to it's the devil, right? We say everything is, and we acknowledge him too much. We give him too much credit for some things that truthfully can be an imbalance, something happening internally within somebody medically, right? There are some truths to some of these things, right? We have excellent doctors and specialists and people who specialize in things a little bit, uh, things that we may not be able to understand. So I would say, yes, I would equate it largely to the knowledge factor and the openness to wanting to explore these different possibilities and having these hard conversations. Because I think mental health is one of many hard conversations that the church try not to touch, right? We want to stay far away from it. But I think that as the times continue to change and people are starting to see like this is not just a spiritual thing. This is a real thing, and we need to have real conversations. So I believe that I would equate it to just the knowledge factor and kind of the church evolving because the world is evolving, things are changing. I'm not saying we need to modernize it. We are in the world, but we're not of it, right? But we understand in order to reach outwardly, we need to be able to come forth with what the people need. One of the pastors that I admired the most, if I ever became a pastor, which I don't want that job, y'all can have that. Um, Reverend Floyd Flake. He owns the Allen AME Church in Queens, South Jamaica, Queens. And when I say he is the most resourceful man I've ever seen, but he understood that I have a community that I need to serve. Yes, I want them to come to the house of the Lord. Yes, I want to give them faith. I want to give them God, but I also want to give them resources. And so that's being open and understanding that in order for the community, because it's not just about it doesn't stop and end. God is the beginning of all things, right? He is the reason for all. However, he get equipped us with the knowledge and the wisdom and the resources to be able to build, right? And so we want to build healthy, whole humans. And in order to do that, we need to connect them to the resources to do so.
I think that's so well said. It's looking at the person as a whole person, and there are other elements to the person. There's spiritual, there's physical, there's the emotional, and sometimes we only deal in one realm, and we neglect the others. And so, um, I love how also you mentioned that the world is evolving, the church has to evolve. I completely agree with that because we got to remain relevant and be able to reach a community out there that is hurting, that needs healing, that's going through trauma, and that needs resources, and that may be looking to communities of faith to really support and reach out to them. So I appreciate you mentioning all those things. I mean, can you tell us how you would like to see, because you talked about this journey to integrate the spiritual aspect, to spiritual counseling with natural counseling. Can you talk to us about what that may look like for us, and how do we sort of have these conversations about faith more and mental health? Because I think it's often ostracized. I think that's another interesting topic that we don't have time to go into, but just touching on what would it look like if we were, as clinicians and mental health experts, be able to integrate the two.
It starts by connectivity. I what that would look like for me is more of those who will sit within the pews who have these degrees and or have these that's grace to be able to serve in this capacity to offer their time and their services to their ministry, to create spaces within their ministry where they can have those conversations, create spaces within their ministry where they can be able to provide the tools and the resources. If your church doesn't have a social service department, say, hey, pastor, let's start a social service department. Now, I understand that we're all busy. We have a lot of schedules. I believe that if you would just throw the net, you will find out that there are other people within the congregation that are either working in the field, know people, that they have the resource. The resources is in the house, right? Yeah, you don't have to go to a ministry of 1,000 to 500. The resources are still in the house. They are somewhere. So I would like to see those who have those abilities and those capabilities within the pews step up, because it's not all about preaching from a pulpit. That bus stop is your pulpit. That grocery store is your pulpit, right? We don't, our servitude does not just start in the four walls, but I would like to see us, those who are in those four walls, to be able to bring that gift forward. Another way is I would like to see that those who do operate in a fivefold ministry, I think it should be a mandate that every minister take a course on mental health. I think that should be a mandate, right? You are being ordained. However, we want you to be equipped, not just with the word of God, but we want you to also be equipped with the tools to be able to support somebody who is dealing with a mental health crisis and be able to refer outwardly for ongoing support. So those are the top two major things that I would like to see to help that, to further these conversations of faith and mental health.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And I was actually sort of visualizing it as you were speaking of it, a culture within faith-based institutions that values and understands mental health, and has the tools to talk about it. I'm wondering what it will look like, how many people will get the help that they need, how many people will be able to work through trauma and work through things that they just have been silent about or haven't received help for. If we can encourage that and promote that, we can truly see people that are whole and healthy. So thank you so much for sharing that. And we're down to our last 2 minutes, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the amazing work that you're doing with Life Equip. I love that you mentioned the name a few times today, and you probably didn't realize it, but you were talking about your own life story and how you didn't necessarily feel like uh, certain environments that you were in was equipped, but now you have Life Equipped. So now you're equipping
I didn't
other
realize.
people other people's lives, and I love that. Can you tell us briefly about the way that you've been able to transform your story into this amazing nonprofit agency that you have?
Yes, thank you so much. So I founded and established the Life Equip Group over 4 years ago, and to sum it up, the Life Equip Group is an organization created to provide information, education, and resources to help youth and young adults design the level of success that they desire. What we're doing is cultivating youth and young adults who are are embracing who they are, finding their individuality, and living in the level of success they desire. I struggled with identity. I struggled with who I was compared to who everybody else wanted me to be. I was a teen mom. I dropped out of high school. I was just unclear. So I wanted to take my experience to help youth and young adults have the support that they need to be successful at the level and the capacity that they see it, and helping them to understand that they don't have to shape their identity by what their mother wants or by what the church wants or social media, right? A lot of us are living our lives under the confines of what everybody else wants. And we want them to live within the grace of God and what God has called them to be. And we also want them to tap into that innate identity and who they are and what they want to be. And so you can follow us on social media at the Life Equip Group on Facebook and Instagram. You could go to our website. We have a lot of great things happening, and we look forward to continuing to partner with Shanequa Moore and I Raise, in which you're doing outstanding work. And I just thank you so much for this space and this time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. That was amazing. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing through Life Equip. And any way we can continue partnering to make sure that we send some young people over to you. We're all in this together. We're really a village. And, there is a proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. It is very true. We are a village. We have to come together to raise our children and our youth together. So thank you for all that you do, Elisa. You are such a jewel and a gem to us, to the field of social work, and to the church, and to me. So I appreciate you so much. I appreciate sharing this space with you. And we'll look forward to having you back on hopefully soon.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, and keep up the great work. I admire you. I'm excited to be able to serve you and to learn from you. And thank you for being a phenomenal individual and
Thank you.
gem to the body of Christ and to the world.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you, Elisa. I appreciate you. As you all can see, there's a lot of love going on over here. And that's what it's all about. So you can follow Life Equip Group right there to learn more. You can follow them at the Life Equip Group. They have a lot of volunteer opportunities. So if you're interested in volunteering, especially in the realm of mental health, please connect with Elisa and the great work that she's doing. And we appreciate you again for having you on, for sharing this space with you. We are coming to the end, but we thank you all so much for watching and for tuning in. Please do us a favor and share this message out so that other people can hear it and can also get something from it. We also have another live coming up next week, Tuesday, next week, Thursday as well. And we're going to be bringing on people that are in ministry, pastors, leaders who are going to be talking more about mental health and faith. So please stay with us and stay connected as we continue talking about this crucial topic. Thank you all so much. Again, happy National Hispanic Heritage Month to our amazing colleagues, friends, family, and all the lovely Hispanic and Latinx individuals out there in the world. We love and appreciate you. We'll see you soon.